Welcome to Discography, a 5 to 9 podcast where we go through an artist's catalogue one album at a time. Last time out, we introduced the series, and the first artist in question is Queens of the Stone Age. I'm Andrew Belt, 5 to 9 editor, and joining me for this series is Adam Reeve, editor of the Dead Good Music blog and a rather large Queens of the Stone Age fan. So, I've got here that I was going to sort of pull up some of the context behind each of the bands, because Wikipedia is still a fantastic resource for this. So
it gets hated on so much, but it is genuinely a gold mine for anything.
I've learned so much about Queens of the Stone Age as I've gone along. It's been my companion about the context behind it all, and that's what I thought. Like, for each of these, would kind of give that before we then go into our personal kind of experience of them, and then you know how we feel about them. But yeah, so this first album released on the 22nd of September 1998. It was through Loose Groove Records, and essentially this was Josh Homme, and I think it's Homme, because I'm going to get a lot of hate if I do that wrong the whole series. But he basically, the first album is kind of him doing a Dave Grohl when he set up Foo Fighters, and basically taking on pretty much all of the instrumentation, the songwriting, and doing it himself to a great extent. You know, from the ashes of Kyuss, his former band. So yeah, recorded in Seattle. Producer was Chris Goss, which won't be the first time we hear his name on the pod. He brought in the bassist. I was doing this as we're kind of going along, so it's a little bit messy. But we've got here Van Connor is the bassist, and drummer Victor Indrizzo. And I'm not sure we hear too much more of them here. But yeah, he made some like Desert Sessions records. You can't really find them. I think chatting to Kylie, who does our Album of the Month podcast, and apparently some of those early Desert record sessions, there's a place which sells it for about $300. They are very rare, these early sessions in that period between Kyuss and Queens of the Stone Age. But either way, he got going with this virtually himself, essentially. And this was the first we heard of Queens of the Stone Age. So 1998. At this point, I hadn't come across them. I was probably still listening to quite poppy music. Hadn't had that rock music awakening. I gather you're a fair bit younger than me, so I don't even know. In 1998, were you?
So what? 1998. So I would have been 5 years old.
5 years old. Probably not the first choice then. Which would have been
probably not.
No.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think they would have been on like the ITV or Nickelodeon. So
yeah, I think some of the lyrical content, particularly these early albums as well, wouldn't really fit with kids' TV shows. But yeah, so clearly, you know, not all of these are going to be that we heard them when they first came out. This is the first example of that. So when did you first listen to this first record of Queens of the Stone Age, their self-titled album?
I think for me, so without kind of giving too much away now, but I sort of discovered them in 2007, so they were firmly underway by this point. I think after hearing the first sort of couple of singles and then the album, it sort of just had me firing on all cylinders to properly like check them out. So I think it kind of took a good couple of years to kind of visit this first album. Because along with that also came like a discovery and exploration of like Caius and all of the sort of desert rock theme, I suppose.
Mm,
Um, so this was, I think, weirdly enough, for this first album, it was probably the last album I
mm.
got to.
Yeah. Well, and you've done the prequel then. If you got into Caius, because again, when speaking to the guys from the Album of the Month podcast, Kylie, guy from Santa Fe, New Mexico, which said, "Have you listened to Caius?" I said, "No, no," and it's like that's almost like the what do they call it in film world, where it's like the origin story essentially. So
Oh yeah.
so you did like the origin story of Josh Homme before you got to this one then. So you had like a bit more of a run up to it. Whereas for myself, this by doing this whole exercise, this is the first time I've listened to it. Albeit,
Oh wow.
yeah, oh yeah, there's a few of those on the. So I mean, yeah, it certainly knew a few of the tracks for sure. A few of them had been firmly kind of part of various playlists, but yeah, it's going into it for the first time. So yeah, and we're gonna go through with the albums like ignoring the bonus tracks. I was thinking that's something we come back to at the end where we kind of like tie up the loose ends and make this a real complete kind of process. So I think it's
Okay, cool.
one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11. So it's an 11 track album we have here. Um, but yeah, what do you make of this first full length, which is essentially a Josh Homme kind of baby? Um,
Yeah, it was. I think it was difficult to properly get into because I think discovering them when they're been what 4 or 5 albums in
mm,
and so many iterations in, um, it did kind of feel like a very kind of raw and almost bare bones sort of record.
mm,
And I think Josh Homme wasn't really known for singing in Caius or anything, so you can kind of tell that this was his kind of first stint as the front man and a singer. But I think what's very cool about this album is you can like this is where the foundation is made. Like the guitars are there, the drums are there. Like it's very sort of riff heavy, and like they're not afraid to sort of go weird with the sound. And I feel like that sort of looseness and willingness to just allow things to go where they want to go still kind of exists in their music today.
mm. Yeah, it's I mean, I read that the whole concept of Queens of the Stone Age was Josh Homme sort of listening to stuff and going, I don't hear a rock band trying to play music you can dance to. He always been about the groove and that sort of thing.
Mm,
And I think even from the off with Regular John, you got that really good groove.
yeah,
And there's some absolute fantastic tracks. If you mentioned it, like the looseness, I think there is a bit of that looseness as well on this one. So
yeah, yeah,
I don't know how many Queens of the Stone Age fans would hold this up as, maybe the classic album. Probably very few. But having said that, as a formative record, this is, you know, it's very much up there in terms of debuts. And to come up with this, albeit again, he's had the experience of being in his previous band, so it's not like he's going in stone cold. Al-
mm,
Although, as you say, as a frontman, that is the case. So yeah, there's so much to admire on here. I mean, the ones which I'd been familiar with was Regular John, which first time I think I heard that was watching MTV2 back in the day, and they'd always show, I think, Rock Am Ring or whatever, and they showed there was an
oh
just
yeah, yeah,
unbelievable Queens of the Stone Age performance. It's done the round, so I think you're familiar with it from me just mentioning it, but the performance of that is just so epic, and then the way they sort
mm,
of you know let it go beyond its usual runtime and really setting the scene. And as the first track, this, so good. And then Avon was another one which, during that kind of COVID time was one of these which I was like, this is a Queens of the Stone Age, classic, really.
Yeah.
Um, and then you have If Only and Walking on the Sidewalks, and that first four is just like, whoa, this is a fully formed band. This is incredible. Um, and it probably doesn't, looking at how I've kind of rated the rest of the album, it doesn't really recover from that point. You have the four
Mm.
best tracks, and this is just what I think. And then the ones which follow, you get good ones and some a bit more filler like. But as an overall album, it works really well. So yeah, how does that chime with your own, if maybe going track by track, how does that work for you in that sense?
Yeah, I think I had similar experiences where I think I learned to like the songs more through seeing certain sort of live
Mm.
versions of them. I remember being obsessed with Avon
Yeah.
because of a Glastonbury video,
Okay.
and they had Dave Grohl on the drums, and it just sounded insane because he's just bashing the hell out of the drums, and it just yeah, it just sounds massive. But um, I think in terms of the album itself, like the original sort of like track list of it, I probably would agree with you there that I think definitely it's loaded like from the front,
Mm.
but quite top heavy. Like they're sort of not really messing around with the first sort of four tracks. Um, but I think later on is it does definitely get a bit more experimental and stuff. But I do think like Mexicola,
Mm.
especially, I think that's if that's not the best track, it's definitely one of the best on the album.
Mm.
Um, but I always agree because in terms of filler, like maybe like the instrumental track, like Hispanic Impressions, again, sort of being someone not really attuned to music at that time, I wasn't really aware that instrumentals were a thing.
Mm.
Um, so that was quite new to experience, but I think it does sort of have its place in between Mexicola and You Can't Quit Me, Baby.
Yeah, I quite like Hispanic Impression. So that's probably one of the ones which I would say is a strong track.
Okay.
And that one isn't one of the more filler ones. I mean, if I'm gonna pick those out, it feels a bit weird to go for the things which are less complimentary because pretty much this whole series is going to be complimentary. But
Yeah.
you know, here I think you would know. That's the first one after that four track run. Some I think this is the first taste of the kind of quite vague lyricism which
Mm.
Josh usually goes by, or at least at the very start of the Queen's career.
Yeah.
Even more so hard, quite opaque, hard to kind of unpack sometimes, although other times very clear.
Mm.
But yeah, just maybe it suffers from being track number five after that first four track run. Um, and then You Can't Quit Me, Baby's a 6 minute song. About it's kind of got creepy obsessional lyrics. And about a psycho killing himself to haunt the dreams of his obsession, which is certainly an interesting like thing. And I've got here that it's absorbing, but it just kind of drifts, and maybe like the formation of the song is one which wouldn't sort of lift it to a high level for me. And then also the two final tracks are, you know, I also think are like decent without being great. So Give the Mule What He
Yeah.
Wants, with its upbeat bass, deals with temptation, lust, be the mule who you gotta be, but just sort of great guitar, but feels fillery. And then I was a teenage hand model, um, is yeah a bit strange. And again, like so, you know, one of my companions for all of this is the Genius lyrics website, and I suppose because they're such a well-known band, Queens of the Stone Age, there's a lot about the context of it, or at least maybe it's fans
Mm.
who are trying to unpack it. And this one apparently is about yeah meeting a bar bum in Seattle who's kind of boasting to people in that bar about his exploits in his youth. Um, but yeah, I've got here strange choice for a single because it also was one of the singles preceding the album. So and I really I've got here that but you know it finishes after 4 minutes essentially because then you just get all that horrible jarring sound which maybe sounded
Yeah.
futuristic in 1998, but to ears in 2025, it just sounds just particularly with the headphones on and quite loud, very unpleasant. So it's kind of a
Yeah.
shame it
I'm,
gets to
I'm
that point.
glad. Yeah, I'm glad that it's something that they didn't decide to stick with in future albums.
What that the way they went the outro at the ends and
The
yeah,
extended outros and glitches and bleeps and
yeah,
God knows what else
yeah,
going on.
kind of like the noise rock approach, like deliberately dissonant in a way. But yeah, I suppose they haven't quite shaped themselves as a band as it's a virtual
Mm,
solo project here and stuff, so it's still finding their way, and that's why even though I think we know when it comes to an ultimate assessment here, this as a debut record is fantastic. Like it's very very
oh
strong.
yeah,
um
yeah,
but yeah, it's got those rough edges basically, which you know, if you were listening in 98, you'd say a band to keep your eye on basically,
mm,
which we can say
yeah,
quite
absolutely.
happily in hindsight. So yeah, overall for you as well, you know, strong record, you would say.
Yeah, I'd say yeah. In terms of debut albums, like there's very few that are gonna be it. I'd say. Um, in terms of like I don't know, just I mean, right out the gate, knowing like fully what sound they wanted to create and which direction they wanted to go. I don't think there is very many debut albums that sound quite as assured as this one does.
Mm, yeah, no, and I suppose with the benefit of the previous experience he's had as well. So
Mm,
yeah, a mature debut album, you might say.
yeah.
And then the part, you know, the thing we're going to do with each of these albums, and obviously you can err on the side of caution and chuck in anything which are good, but you know, we're going to challenge you and myself to create a top 20 Queens of the Stone Age playlist from all of these albums. So, what nominees do you have from this album for that?
Oh man. This is like it's one of those things where you
Choosing your
could
favorite
very
child.
yeah, basically. Or like 2 minutes later it's like totally different order. But I
Mm.
think for me especially it would be Mexicola and Regular John. And I do want to say you can't quit me, baby, but I don't want to be too greedy from the
Okay.
get go.
Yeah, okay. Because I was going to keep it quite simple and just go for the opening four. Basically, but
Oh,
it'll
okay.
make it harder further down the track, admittedly, um, to then whistle it down. But yeah, I would say we're in agreement on Regular John. Then Avon
Mm.
for me definitely has to be in there, and I'm going to add in If Only and Walking on the Sidewalks as probably more 50/50s, I would say. So
Okay.
not Mexicola for me. We've had our first diversion. But yeah, we'll see how this sort of yeah progresses as we move along.
Mm.
And that is our take on the self-titled debut album from Queens of the Stone Age. So we're off. Next, we will be discussing the Queens' second album, Rated R. And don't forget to stay up to date with 5 to 9 by following us on Instagram or YouTube. And to keep up to date with Dead Good Music blog, follow @deadgoodmusic_ on Instagram. Thanks for listening.